Hi, I'm supernatural thriller author J.F. Penn, and you're listening to GenreTainment.
You're listening to GenreTainment. And here are your hosts, Marx and Julie.
Hi everyone, welcome to GenreTainment. This is your co-host Marx, joined as always with
co-host Julie. GenreTainment is where we talk about what's happening in the world of books, film, TV, and tabletop role-playing games. We give you interviews with writers, game designers, directors, producers, and actors in both independent and not-so-independent creations.
On this episode, we're chatting with author Marisa Wolf. She tells us about her new science fiction book, Beyond Enemies, published by Baen Books, and urban fantasy book, The Spider, set in the shared world of Hit World.
She also talks about her writing origins with writing fan fiction and how to transition successfully into writing for shared worlds and beyond. She also shares tips for authors about co-writing and more.
Now, in the interview, we mentioned she co-wrote a new short story for the upcoming anthology, Fairy Tales, Folklore, and Fables Reimagined.
Yes, at the time we recorded, we didn't have more details, but now we can let you know the Kickstarter for that anthology is July 16th.
Ooh.
So please check out the link in the show notes if you would like to support this anthology and perhaps take advantage of special rewards exclusive to backers.
We also want to mention that our new actual play series, Genre Play, launched on our Cabot Crossing YouTube channel and on its own Spotify feed. If you're interested, the links are also in the show notes.
On Genre Play, you can watch us and our friends play different tabletop role-playing games like Call of Cthulhu, Tales of the Valiant, Daggerheart, and more.
Now, Genre Play will have new episodes nearly every week, and GenreTainment will be a little less frequent, more like once or twice a month for now. But if you want more GenreTainment, then you can let us know by joining our new Patreon. You also can find that link in the show notes. There you can get bonus episodes and extra fun content.
And if Patreon just isn't for you, please consider sharing, liking, rating, and subscribing to our shows. All of those things will help them grow. And of course, you can show us support by buying copies of books from Cabot Crossing Publishing, like Dragons of a Different Tale and Tales of Monstrosity.
Okay, I think that covers everything. Now let's get to our interview with author Marisa Wolf. All right, well, we're back with GenreTainment, and today we're with Marisa Wolf.
Woo.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
If you've checked out our anthologies, especially Tales of Monstrosity, you may have caught Marissa's story on there. If you like noir and gorgons, you'll love it.
And whomst amongst us, who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? All right, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, a little bit about yourself and how you got started with writing.
Yeah, I am Marisa Wolf. I am a second generation nerd. My dad raised me in the ways of nerdiness. So I wrote my first genre story about giant potatoes when I was 6, and my dad laminated it. And I joke about this in my author bio, but it's true. Like, I feel like I've been chasing that high ever since. Like, may I write enough stories to be cool enough to be laminated? So,
what's the name of that story?
Sarah and the Case of the Idaho Potatoes.
Ah, interesting.
Yep. I genuinely don't know why I was obsessed with specifically Idaho potatoes, but I also illustrated it. It was terrible. But
nice.
Yeah, stand by it.
So you've been writing for a long time then. So when did you actually get your first story published?
Yeah.
How long's that been?
Oh, yeah, that's like a real story. Yeah. So 2018. I think it was accepted in 2017. It came out 2018. So between those years, I wrote a lot of fan fiction. So I like to joke that I really improved my writing abilities through the world of fan fiction. I don't think it's a joke, actually. I think it's real. And then started getting published in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that from a lot of authors who started with fan fiction. So out of curiosity, what fan fiction did you write? What kind of
that's what I was getting ready to ask.
The wildly vast majority of it was for Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern.
Cool.
So I was in a lot of clubs. We wrote lots of stories. We had lots of original characters. It's real good stuff.
I hope there was one story where it was the potato writers variation.
Sadly, no. The two universes never crossed over.
Someday.
Someday. You know what? It's still in the future for me, maybe. Dragons that love to eat potatoes, maybe, will be the future.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've heard a lot of people do that with fan fiction. It's kind of getting the practice in and developing their voice, or developing their writing style and everything, then spring out into your own voice.
Yeah.
So what was I'm sorry, did you say what the first story was that you published in 2018?
I didn't. It was, so my first one that was accepted and my first one that published were different, but the first one that was published was in the shared universe of the Four Horsemen. So it was about a cat assassin. They're called hunters in the universe, but they're aliens.
Oh, you had me at cat
right?
assassin.
They're aliens that look a lot like cats for reasons, and they are the galaxy's premier assassins, as they would be. And the story is called Under the Skin, and it is a cat assassin who has to go find out what happened to his protege.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's why I picked a cat image.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very on brand. I love.
Yes, we're cat people, so.
I love
sure.
cats. My husband is violently allergic, so I know.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. I know. It's really...
That's like one of my worst nightmares, is that one of us would ever become allergic to a cat.
Oh my gosh.
Cats.
Right?
I mean, that's...
Julie, seriously. Yeah, so early on in our dating career, he told me that he was allergic to cats and dogs, and I was like, so is it like real bad for both? Because I don't know that I can go my whole life, and we're not entangled at this time, so let's decide.
Right. Yeah.
He's like, not as bad with dogs, and so he's had dogs ever since. So it's worked out for us.
I was gonna say, you have a dog, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. For the first time the first time in almost 20 years, we only have one dog right now, which is kind of crazy.
Now, so you said first published, first accepted is two different things. So now I'm curious, like, what your accepted one is, unless there's some horror story from that you don't want to share.
It's just the way, it's just the way publishing timelines happen sometimes. The other one, the first one that was accepted, was a co-authored short story with Casey Izell in another shared universe that had a couple of anthologies called Shada. And it was basically like every certain number of years, dimensions overlap and like demons come into the world. And so it was a story of the time they did that and they took over all the toys. So we told the story of a kid's plastic army men who actually came to life to protect him from the demons. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it was a fun story. Nice. A creepy story, but fun.
So you did mention the Four Horseman universe, and you've written in at least one other shared universe that I know of, right?
Yeah.
The urban fantasy world that escaping, what's the name?
Hit World. Yeah.
Hit World. Yes. How's it feel writing in a shared universe? I guess a couple of things. Well, let's start with that. How's it feel writing in a shared universe, and how's it different from something else? And actually, now I think about it, with shared universes, it kind of bring back some feelings of fan fiction,
right? Yeah, that was my answer, so you already got it. Yes.
We don't even need her here. We just have Marx.
I love it. Marx just tell the story.
I'm just like an AI. Well, the answer is
no, that's really insightful. So I love working in shared universes. I have been incredibly lucky with the people I've gotten to work with and the actual universes that I've gotten to play in. And it's super fun because you do get that like spirit of teamwork. A lot of my shared universe novels have been co-authored. 4, 5, 6, 7 of them have been co-authored. So It's like extra teamworky, right? So you get to like get in there with somebody else. And anytime I find if I'm writing for too long on my own, I will get stuck somewhere, no matter if I've outlined or not, I will just get stuck. And then my brain's like, I will just vomit more words. Here are more words. This is going to make it better. And that doesn't. Trade secret, right? Like it doesn't. And when I have a co-author, I can check that every time because I can talk to them. And a shared universe, even when you're just writing your own story, you get that too. You can still like call somebody up and be like, hey, I'm playing in this little corner of this thing that you mentioned, or I was thinking about doing this and it might affect your stuff this way. And you get that really fun teamwork, which, yes, exactly like Mark said, reminds me a lot of the fan fiction fun. Like we co-wrote almost everything that we wrote back in the days. And it's really fun. I get a lot of energy from it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so one's urban fantasy, the other one's sci-fi. Well, actually, why don't you tell
Give us a
people
bunch.
who haven't
Yeah.
heard of these shared universes, what are those shared universes?
Yeah, I
Four
just
Horsemen and
try to get my grubby hands on everything. I'm not going to lie to you guys. So the first one is Four Horsemen. And so that universe has a little over 90 books now at this point.
wow.
So it is going like gangbusters.
That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. There are different points that you can come in, so you don't have to read all 90 to like read one,
Mhm.
But it is also just, it's a super fun space opera, mil sci-fi, science fiction-y fun universe. So not like super far future, but lots of aliens and just super, I genuinely can't say it enough. It's so much fun. And so, and it's, a universe. So you can write in a chapter, or you can write in a little corner of it and have nothing to do with any other story, which some people have done. Or you can be like crazily entangled in all the other stories, which a lot of people have done. So that one is super fun. Hit World is urban fantasy. And our book, The Spider, just came out last month. That's when March was, yeah. And so that just came out, and that kicks off the spin-off of the universe that I'm series running called the Valkyries Initiative, which will be heavier on the urban fantasy than the assassin. I love assassins, apparently, not in real life. Sorry, agent.
Yeah.
But in fiction. So there's like an assassin heavy side in Hit World. And then there's also the urban fantasy, and the Valkyries Initiative is going to lean real hard into the urban fantasy side. So it's basically, everything that could be real is real. And shenanigans are definitely ensuing because you've got these two international / potentially interdimensional organizations that are starting to duke it out. And the Valkyries Initiative is sort of off to the side to kind of police both of them. So
Cool.
yeah, so those are the two main ones. And then I have written in a couple of like video game or tabletop game spin-off. So I did Starflight, working on a novel in the Car Wars world from Steve Jackson.
Mhm.
I will soon be working with David Weber, who people may have heard of, in the Honorverse, which is pretty incredible. And so I feel like my shared universe chops have gotten me a lot of good progress to or experience to be ready to walk into such an amazing universe like the Honorverse, and get to work with the creator. So
Nice. So, how did you fall into these shared universes? If someone else wants to try to write in something like that, or is it networking? Is there a submission call, or?
yeah, it's luck and knowing people. And then there was a submission call at one point. Yeah. So there's, because I've also done short stories in the Fallen World, which is post-apocalyptic, Salvage Universe, which is space opera. So yeah, so there are a bunch out there, and often they'll do anthologies, and if you can sneak a good story in there, that really helps. So with the Four Horsemen, it was all Casey Azell, who is an amazing author and somebody I wrote fan fiction with for a good 20 years. She was deployed. She was in the Air Force at the time, and she was deployed. And she was like, you know what? I've been writing for a long time. I want to make this a thing. I'm gonna write something of my own and get it published. And because she is who she is, she did it. She just got it done.
Mhm.
And then she had a couple stories out there, and so Chris Kennedy and Mark Wandry, who are the creators of the Four Horseman universe, actually reached out to her and were like, "Hey, we're doing this anthology. We'd love to invite you to submit a story." And she was like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, sounds great." And so she did, and they loved it, obviously, because she's amazing. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to turn this into a novel?" Which is the dream, right? With a lot of short stories, is that someone will be like, "Hey, you want to novel this?" So
Yeah.
she said, "Yes, I would love to do that, but my plate is real full. Can I bring in a co-author?" And they were like, "I mean, I guess." So that's why I wrote that short story, Under This Skin, was kind of to see if I could hang, and if they were cool with me, and thankfully they were. And so that's why I got into the Four Horsemen, and I feel like that really set the stage for getting in my little grubby hands everywhere else. So I worked really hard and had a lot of fun there. And like the biggest piece of advice I have for anybody, two things. One, say yes as much as you can. Like, don't say yes so often that you can't deliver on your deadlines. She says, having
Mhm.
just been late on a deadline. But say yes whenever you can, and then be professional, be on time, submit your best product, because the next time that particular anthology editor has an opportunity, they're much more likely to be like, "Oh, Marisa got her stuff together. Let's go ask her. And people talk like it's a huge industry. Not everybody knows everybody, but it's also a very small industry. And you're usually only a couple of degrees away from people. So, the subset underlying foundation of all these rules is just don't be a jerk.
Yeah. That's kind of a good rule of thumb in general.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah.
So those are a couple of different genres you're writing. Do you care about, or do you lean towards sci-fi or fantasy more, or is there a genre that you really like that you haven't quite written yet?
Ooh, yeah. So I am an equal opportunity nerd. I love all the sci-fi fantasy, that whole SFF. That is my jam. I love it.
Mhm.
I have been super lucky in that, like, at least with my short stories, like I really want to try a noir story. And then, here's Marx with this cool Tales of Monstrosity thing. And I wrote a noir story. And then I got to write another one for Baen. Like, it was very exciting. Trying to manifest my genres out there. Then, so I think between short stories, I've written a little bit of everything. I mean, the only things that I probably won't do because I am not suited to them are like grimdark. Like, I don't think I'm really a grimdark person.
Mhm.
And I've like put my toe into the horror genre, but it is a very specific skill, and I would have to practice it a lot more to like do more there. But urban fantasy, epic fantasy, modern fantasy, love it. Sci-fi, space opera, love it. I mean, I probably also won't do a lot of hard sci-fi because there's a very limited amount of math that I'm interested in. But other than that,
Yeah, I know. It's intimidating to do that.
I love it.
Somebody's like, well, actually, this physics theory would say that.
Right. Like, look, I read a
Yeah.
synopsis on the internet. I'm so sorry. That's all I know about dark matter. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's okay. My philosophy, anything you can imagine is technically possible eventually.
That's right.
Just,
Right?
yeah. So
And
just don't go too detailed in how it happens.
yes.
It will.
Yes. And most people don't know how things work. Like, if somebody came from somewhere else and tried to figure out how Wi-Fi worked, I would not be able to tell them. So if I'm telling a story in like a limited third person point of view, which most of my stories are, or in first person, it is likely that the character has no freaking idea how artificial gravity works. Like, it's artificial gravity, man. It does a thing. Cool. That is the extent of what I bring to the hard science table. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be funny. Like, oh man, this cell phone is a miracle of science. How does it work with this? Oh, it's wires. Well, let me tell you.
let me tell you, I'm going to give you a 20-page. No, I'm not. I don't know. It is magic.
I don't know. Yeah. It still feels like magic to me.
Same. Yes. I mean, it's moody, right? So that's magic. Like, sometimes my Wi-Fi is just like, no, not today. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Didn't do the right incantation, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, I definitely want to write more fantasy novels. I've been pretty sci-fi heavy on the novels, but I don't want to stop writing sci-fi. So I'm just gonna keep bouncing around as long as I can.
Nice. Oh, and you said, and just so people know, Julie's not feeling very well today, so
That's why my voice sounds like this.
yeah,
It sounds
so I'm doing a
very
lot of
like
talking.
podcast awesome. I think I don't know.
Thank you.
You just gotta get a smoking voice.
Right?
It's like, oh, it's late night. You were talking about in Four Horsemen, you are now going to like spearhead, showrun. I'm not sure what the proper term is. Like your own segment of that. So how's that entail? Like, are you gonna work with the different authors, playing out different books, or tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. So for Valkyries, it's super fun. So I will keep working with the two main authors for Hit World. So that is William Allen Webb and Larry Hoy, because these stories will still happen in the same like world, right? So we can't be like, oh, and then I blew up DC, because they need to know that DC got blown up. Not blowing up DC, Agent Johnson, I swear. But like, so we have to keep kind of tabs on that. And then we've got for Valkyries, a sort of 1-season arc planned out. So the Spider just came out. That kind of kicks it off. There's an anthology called the Valkyries Initiative that will come out next month in May. That will tell a little bit more about the women mostly who are going to be recruited for the Valkyries Initiative. And then I have a novel that will come out in July that will follow the director of the Valkyries Initiative as she puts together a team. So it's a little bit like A-Team meets urban fantasy and Mission Impossible for fun, just for fun. And then the next 3 to 4 books will be various Valkyries, like, so the point of view of the Valkyrie. So I have worked, 2 of them are already done, and the authors like did all the heavy lifting. They wrote the book, they planned the book, they did the stuff, but we touched base on some of the big pieces. And then my director will show up in all of them, kind of like Nick Fury. So, we touch base to make sure she sounds right everywhere she goes. And we've got sort of an arc that it's building towards against the big bad. We know where that'll end. And then at the end of that season, we'll sort of see how it's gone, what people have responded to, and then plan arc 2 for the next round of Valkyries. So it's really fun.
Nice.
So I get to read stories really early. I get to brainstorm with authors. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Talking about like blowing up Washington, D.C. or whatever.
Right.
Place.
I mean, as a for instance.
Is there some kind of reference document you have to use in the shared universe, or do you guys have something like that set up to help you out with keeping track of all these characters, or
Yeah, it's
factions or whatever?
it's a really good question. Yes. So there was a series Bible to start for when we did the anthology of just like, here are some common points that everyone would know in this same world or would be exposed to, whether or not they know it. And then for the actual, now we're getting into the seasons, this is also probably from my fan fiction days and or my stage managing days, ? But I have this ridiculously, probably overcomplicated Google Drive that has all these different files. So there's like here's the overarching plot of the season. Here's the order that the books are coming out. Here are the top points of the books as far as we know. Here are links to the books once they're turned in. So the other authors can read them. They can either just look at the summary or read the book if they want to. And then I started, but we have not fully populated yet, this big spreadsheet of characters so that people can put in like, here's my main Valkyrie, here's general like description, because anybody who works with this mostly women, but not only women, this person would know, like, I don't want to describe Athena as a blonde if she's really a brunette. Like, readers are going to pick up on that.
Right.
And then also like a note of like, yes, you can use this character. No, you cannot, or you probably can, but let's talk about it. And just kind of as we're filling that in as we go. So, if we ever get to a place where we have 90 books, it's easier to go back in and check and not have to go read 89 books to write a book in the universe. And then there's just like a couple of other documents in there. I figure it'll grow as we get there. But right now it's overcomplicated for the level of information that's in there, but trying to plan for the future. So
awesome. Well, good luck with that. I'll definitely check it out. So I know your spider cover looks pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as Bill's brainchild. So one of the things I enjoy about urban fantasy covers are that it's so often a badass chick from behind. So that's specifically what I asked for, and he gave me 2, which was pretty great. So I think that will be pretty common for the Valkyries covers. Is you're going to have a woman that you are seeing from behind, and she will have a cool gun and a cool mythical weapon in one hand or nearby, just to really get that like urban fantasy piece in there.
Yeah.
Nice. A lot of these stories are co-written, and I'm curious, like, what's your co-writing process you do with people? Do you like one of you write one draft and then next one, the other person write another draft, or one person outline, the other person? I mean, how's that kind of work with your flow? And I know it could be different with different people, but in general, how's that flow?
Yes, it is. So I was just talking about this with Casey last night. It is not only different with different co-authors, because I've written with 6 or 7 different folks at this point. It's also different from project to project. So Casey and I have done 3 novels, co-edited an anthology, and done like 5 or 6 short stories together. And it is wildly different every time. So, and that's not even like what we used to do back in fan fiction days, right? So, but that's somebody I've been writing with for several decades at this point. 2 decades, that's several. But yeah, so right now I am doing this Car Duels novel with Charlie Cox, who is a newer author. She's so freaking great. And we talked about it, and I was like, look, here's how I wrote with this person, here's how I wrote with this person, here's how I wrote with this person. Like, what do you think? What would be helpful for you? She's like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, fair. Because sometimes we have a plan, but then we get into it and it doesn't work. So instead, we'll put a stake in the ground and then we'll get into it. And then sure enough, it changed because what we were doing wasn't super working. So right now, like to your first example, Marx, like she is writing the vast majority of the first drafts of chapters, and then I'll go in and like edit a little or change something, or we'll talk about it and move something or punch up something that she did that was so cool that wasn't in the outline, but like we're like, oh no, we should go with that. Then now we got to go back and make sure it's, we're leading to it. That's the first time I've ever written like that. Usually it's either we split POV characters, or one of us will be in the document and write and then get it back to the other person, and then they'll go edit what the other person wrote, carry it forward, send it back. That person will edit, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Right.
And, everything in between. So
Kind of tag teaming it.
yeah,
Kinda.
which I love. I love the tag teaming. I did 2 novels in 6 weeks with Chris Kennedy 2 years ago now, I think. I don't know how time works. But we started, he had like just these little bullet pointed outlines, and then he would write very methodically, like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and I'd be like, no, today I feel like doing chapter 19, and I would just like dive in and do that, and then I would like bounce back to 5 and go over to 6, and that worked shockingly well for both of us, which was great. I say methodically, like he's just very disciplined. He's like, well, now I'm doing this, now I'm doing this, and I'm like, my energy is saying I should do this thing over here. So
Right.
but it's the beauty of the outline, because while I am by nature a pantser, you can't really pants a novel with a co-author.
No.
Yeah, it's a real bad call. So the beauty
Be
of
very experimental, maybe.
yeah, maybe, yeah, like a stream of consciousness one question mark. Unreliable narrator, probably. You could maybe.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like 2 different stories.
Like,
What's happening?
so weird. I don't know who this guy is from one thought to another. Yeah, so that helps. Like that helps. So even if you have different styles, you can kind of do the things that you each need to do because you've got that kind of outline to guide you is helpful. But
Awesome. All right. Well, one of the biggest news pieces we definitely want to make sure we cover is your new book that came out not too long ago, published by Baen Books.
yeah.
Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, thanks. So Beyond Enemies is actually my first solo novel. So it's my 7th novel, but my first one all by myself. And that thing that
Congratulations.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And that thing we were laughing about earlier about the like, just throw more words at it. This book was about 20,000 words longer in the first draft because I had an outline, and then in the middle I was like, I don't know. Here are more words, but those didn't make it here because Baen has editors, so they
Yeah.
definitely were wonderful professionals. And it's still a good chunky book. It's almost 400 pages. Yes, it is sci-fi. I'd say it's somewhere in between. It's like very light military sci-fi, sort of space opera-y, and then just conspiracies all the way down. So it's a story of a girl and her tank, really the AI that runs the tank, who are fighting a war and then realize the war that they thought they were in isn't actually the war they're fighting. And they need to decide, should we keep it up? Like the status quo is fine, question mark, or should we do something knowing that that might burn everything down? But like they're a tank, so fire is usually the answer. So,
Right. A touching story about a girl and her tank.
the age-old tale, really.
Yes.
So it's fun.
It sounds great. The covers looks really good.
Oh, thanks.
And
Yeah, that's Sam Kennedy. He is freaking awesome. When I got this cover in my email, the noise I made could only be heard by our dogs, and they did not appreciate it. I was so excited. So
do you plan this to be a standalone book, or if sales are good, or do you want to do sequels, or?
I would love to do a sequel. Yeah, I think it really depends on, if other people like it. So if it sells well enough, I know what the sequel would be. I don't think it's like a 5-book series. I think it's 2, maybe 3, but it's probably just 2. But mostly it's because I would write 1,000 books because I love the main characters. They are this is a sort of book you read if you enjoy dialogue. If you do not enjoy a lot of dialogue in your books, I'm probably not an author that you would enjoy, to be clear. Snarky dialogue is my jam and what brings me so much joy. So the interaction between the girl and her tank, Talon and Bee, is my favorite, and I would write them all the time just to have more of that in my life.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm pretty dialogue heavy too, I think.
Yeah.
Do you think so, Julie?
Yeah, I think so.
You're really good at dialogue too. You know, like sometimes there's dialogue and you're like, oh, this is awkward. People don't talk like this. Your dialogue is super fun.
Oh, well, thank you.
I tend to get into a lot of sweeping like descriptions and stuff.
Nice. So important.
So
yeah, I'm always a little weak at that part. There's a sun. Okay, now back to talking.
yeah,
Now let's be sassy about it. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why the short story that we co-authored for Dragons of a Different Tale had a little bit more, I think, descriptions and stuff in it than his work usually has.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that
Yeah,
teamwork
hopefully
though,
we'll-
right? Because then you each bring your strengths and it's a better story. I love that.
We
Yeah.
had fun.
Oh yeah, a lot of fun. It gives you a different kind of energy, right? When you're writing somebody else, and
Yeah.
just by yourself. So
Yeah.
How did you guys approach co-authoring? Did you trade it back and forth, or did you have like specific?
Yeah, we kind of traded back and forth.
yeah,
He would kind of get it started, and then I would go back and edit what he wrote, and then I would add on, and we just kind of
Nice.
we brainstormed originally, and so out of
yeah,
that
we
it
did,
came-
we brainstormed all the beats and everything ahead of time.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that with short story.
Oh,
The
Yeah.
it's kind of
yeah.
mapped out.
Yeah. Melissa and I just did that for a story for the Fae anthology, except we thought we had it nice and like 8K tight. But then I emailed Max and I was like, hello, it is 12,000 words. Thank you so much. So yes, easier in a short story, but also sometimes you go wondering.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm looking at us trying to write this one short story from a submission that seems kind of interesting, but it's like 2,800 words. I'm like, I don't know if I can write a story that small.
Yeah, that's real impressive.
So
I have only
I don't see him doing it.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'll be like, never mind, it's a novel now.
That's right.
That's kind of how you write, yeah.
So real. Oh dear.
And if there's a way to make a story as complicated as possible, he will do
Nice. You got to keep people
It's called
interested.
plot threads.
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Plot twists.
I love it. I love that.
If a plot doesn't go anywhere, it was a red herring. It was always
Yeah, it was always planned that way.
Yeah.
That's right.
distracting you.
That's right. It's not a plot hole, it's pockets.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Awesome. So, any other upcoming projects you want to mention? You did mention our third anthology. You submitted a story, you co-wrote a story for. We're in a state. We just got all the submissions in, so it's still, early days to talk about that. But
Right.
that's something coming up a little later this year. Anything else you got in the works, or is Valkyrie pretty much going to be?
I think
of
Valkyries are the big things for this year. I've got a couple of anthologies that will come out. Casey Izell has this incredible new space opera universe coming out. And you know me, I like to play in a shared universe. So the Ashes of Entesia, the first book is the Queen's Fixer, is out now, and the second book is coming out end of April. So there'll be an anthology this summer for that to kind of spin off some new novels. Valkyries, and then I believe at some point later this year I will start working with David Weber on an Honorverse novel, which will be really cool. So I mean, that's probably like a year or two out for publication, but it'll be really exciting.
And if for some reason someone doesn't know the Honorverse, tell them a little bit about it.
Oh, yes. So the Honorverse is centered on Honor Harrington. It came out in the 90s because I definitely started reading it in high school. And it's mill sci-fi, space opera-y, and it does a lot of things really well. But the main thread is Honor Harrington, and you follow her from basically her first mission through being like a fleet commander. And you get to see her grow and learn and lose and win through a career. And it's really, really wonderful. And then one of the things that David Weber does incredibly well, and this is true of all of his books that I have read, he can draw characters so fast, like 2 sentences in, you know exactly who you're dealing with. and you believe that they're a real person. And he will often give you those people on all sides of a conflict. So you're rooting for Honor, but often when you're dealing with some of her enemies, you're like, oh no, I see why. Oh no, I understand their point. Oh no, Honor, don't blow. Oh, you blew him up. Okay. Oh, you didn't blow this one up. Like you get real invested in a lot of people. So strongly recommend for folks. It was one of the first big sprawling universes that I fell in love with before college.
Awesome. Well, it's awesome you can get an opportunity to do that. So
Ooh, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited. I was mentioning to Mr. Weber there that I'm just kind of seesawing back and forth between like I am a professional and I am a fangirl. So I don't. Sometimes I just start like giggling to myself. It's fine. I'm a professional.
I'm trying to
Kind
think
of
of
a
a
tough line to walk.
You know? Yes. We're just kind of zigzagging all over that line. It's fine. It's fine.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm excited for all your upcoming projects, and of course, getting ready to read your short story submission that you did. With
Yeah,
Melissa, so.
yeah. Fingers crossed. Maybe you'll be like, you know what? You don't need 12,000 words.
Yeah.
You can have 4. I'll be like, oh no.
It'll be interesting. So, listeners, you have to get the anthology to
That's
find
right.
out how many words it ended up being.
Yeah.
See where Melissa Olthoff and I ended up. Watch, it's like 15,000 words by then. We had to add more. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
We'll put a word count at the bottom for
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Remind me. I'll do that. And for
Oh
our
my-
GenreTainment listeners, this is the workout.
That would be hilarious. I'll put it in my little. We have to do that little essay, right? So we'll put it in
Oh,
the essay
yes,
what
yes.
the final count was.
Awesome.
That's hilarious.
All right. Well,
Well, I wanted to ask, I'm not sure where you are in New England, I think it is, but were you able to see the eclipse today?
Yeah, so it got cloudy about 20 minutes before the eclipse. We were
Oh
we
no.
were at the like 85 to 90% totality, so it wasn't like quite as dramatic.
Oh, we had the complete totality
Oh my
here.
gosh.
yeah, it's cool.
That is so cool.
It was our second because we drove down to Madisonville, Kentucky a few years ago for the eclipse that was there, because that was, I mean, for us that was only about a little over an hour drive, you
Nice.
know, and but it took us many hours to get back. The traffic
Oh,
was so bad
shoot.
coming out of those towns, you know.
Yeah.
But this time we were in our backyard.
Oh, that's so
It
cool.
was incredible.
Yeah. I saw a total in what was it, 2016, I think?
17, I think.
17. Yeah, time math and I are not friends, but yes, so I got to see it then and that was awesome. This one, I mean, it was still so cool because the light like dramatically changed, the birds lost their minds, like it was still very
Yes.
cool, but we couldn't see like really anything with the sun itself.
Yeah, it gets cooler and it's a cool effect.
Yeah, it's wild. Like, yeah,
It's like the sun setting, but
yeah,
but it's setting in the middle of the sky.
Yeah, it's different than the sunset though. But yeah.
yeah, the colors
Yeah.
were they were just so washed out, like in a very different way. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on GenreTainment. And before you go, can you tell everybody where they can find you and your work?
Yes, you can find me at Marisa Wolf. Wow, yes, my name, marisawolf.net or marisawolf.com. You can also find me. See, finger words are better than mouth words, just so you know. You can also find me on the Instagrams at Book Dogs. So I post about books and I post about dogs. And if you go to my website or my Instagram, you can sign up for my mailing list. And then once a month, you will get just pure shenanigans from me talking about stuff. So that will also talk about what cons and whatnot I will be going to in the year ahead. Are you guys going to Dragon Con this year?
Should. I don't know if Julie will be there, but I will probably be there. So
Julie, come to Dragon Con.
I love Dragon Con. I've been a couple of times.
Yes, I will be there. I'm very excited about Dragon Con. So yeah, if you sign up for the mailing list, you can figure out where I'll be in the real world, and that's delightful. And thank you guys so much for having me here. This was so fun.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for being on.
Yeah.
This is Simon R. Green. I write science fiction and fantasy series. I think trilogies are for wimps. I've done 12 books in at least 3 series. And there are short stories and magazines and anthologies all over the place. You'll find me somewhere. And you're listening to GenreTainment.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Marisa. We are looking forward to reading your new books and publishing your new short story.
I think that's a wrap for today's episode.
Until next time.
Bad monkey.